Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, AI in Organizational Change Management, Where to Use AI and Where to Stay Human, presented by our Director of Business Solutions at Watermark Learning, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela, and I will be assisting and moderating today's session. We are on Zoom for today's webinar, and I will be emailing you a recording of the session after the webinar is concluded. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short, dedicated Q&A after the presentation. Watermark Learning and Educate 360 are so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Thank you so very, very much, Mariella. Well, happy Thursday and welcome to how to use AI and where to stay human in organizational change management. So that is kind of interesting because we're always focused on organizational change management as the people side of change. And how do we still honor that and that humanness part and use AI where we can to make it more productive? And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about as we move forward today. So we're going to talk about how to introduce AI into our normal life cycle of org change management. So defining and assessing readiness, plan, implement, sustain. How to figure out where AI adds value, but where we still need to have that human touch. Because like I said, org change is about the people side of change. We still need the people side of change. So, and then identifying some safeguards that we need to think about when we introduce AI into our organizational change framework. So we know that change is happening all over the place. I mean, we got new processes, new products, new services, new technology, new methodologies. I mean, there's just so much change. And now AI certainly being a piece of that. I mean, and that introduces AI or the automation into this, or artificial intelligence, I'd say, as being processes and products and services. And kind of figuring out how to get the best of AI with all our changes that are coming at us, and AI being another change that is coming at us. And how do we leverage that to do our job as OCM managers? Because the thing is about change, every initiative, whether it's a new process, new technology, whatever, brings change to the people in the organization. Change brings uncertainty that can lead to anxiety, fear, confusion, resistance. And yet, if people are so fearful that they don't change, or they have a lot of resistance that they said, nope, I'm just going to wait you out, you're not going to get the value because they're not going to adapt to the change. They're just going to say, nope, I'm happy where I'm at. Thank you very much. And I don't want to change. I kind of like what I'm doing. If people are entrenched in that and we don't help them through change, we're not going to get the value for whatever that change was, whether it's a new process, new technology, new org structure. We have to work on the people side of change. So organizational change management is really a structured approach to be able to help people adopt to the change, help them, and speed up the process of adoption. Okay. And so whether it's a process, a structure, a culture, how do we get people on board? So one, they don't put the brakes on and say, nope, no, thank you. I didn't vote for this. I'm not going to do this. How do we get them to endorse the change, to change their ways of working, and to keep moving and being able to get the value we expected out of that change faster than we used to? So it really is focused on the people side of change. So before we start talking about AI and org change management Framework. Just a little bit of review about the personal transition process in change. So change is the process of people letting go. And it's letting go of their old work habits, their old behaviors, their old attitudes towards their work, their old mindsets, and basically changing that and establishing, okay, new habits, new ways of working, new behaviors, new attitudes, new mindsets in order to get those desired outcomes. And so as the transition process, it's interesting that the change is an event. Change is when you implement the new process. Okay, so on Friday you had the old process, on Monday you get the new process. Or we just installed this new software application. It's an event, and we went from this to this. Done. That doesn't mean people haven't come along with the change. So in every situation, and people go through this, sometimes they go through this in 5 minutes, sometimes it takes them 5 years. And you can see what happens to productivity. Also, when we learn something new, what happens? We get slower. So a lot of times we think about those new processes, that new software, and a lot of times we're after either lowering costs, getting more revenue, or increasing productivity. Those are usually the big three. Understanding productivity is going to go down until people get used to it. But realizing that it's going to take time. And some people, like I said, will go through it really quickly. Some people are going to take a little bit longer, but they're always going to have resistance. There always has to be a point where, okay, I can't do it the old way. Now I got to do it the new way. Okay, I'm kind of getting there. And then as they learn, they're going to have some good good days and bad days, if you want to say. So it's like some days like, yeah, I love it. This is great. Okay, I'm on board. Yep, I can do this. And the next day, for some reason, maybe they forgot how to do something. It's like, oh my gosh. That was kind of the same way that I felt when I had certainly maybe like you have gotten laid off a couple times in my career. And I during that chaos stage, I said, "Wow, this is really, I'm glad I got laid off. Something new." And then at the same time going, "Oh my gosh, what if I never get another job?" You think of these weird things, and when people are in change, God, I used to know my job, and now, oh, I'm not very good at it. It doesn't make me feel very good. Or I used to be the go-to person. I used to know it all. I mean, anybody who wanted to know about the system or this process, I would be the go-to person. Now I just lost face because I don't know anything more than anybody else does. People are still finding the ways. They still come to me and they go, "Hey, Susan, do you know about this?" And you're going, "Gosh, I don't know any more than you do. What do you know?" And so we, our work gets embedded into our psyche, into part of being who we are. And all of a sudden that changes. How does that change me as a person? Eventually we get through the chaos to get insight and vision going, "Oh yeah, I can do this. We can move forward." But it takes practice. It takes practice to get to that current routine. And so what we're going to look at today is figuring out AI, and you've seen AI all everywhere you go. I don't think you can even avoid it if you wanted to. Um, we're going to bring AI into this where it's still a people process, but we can use AI to even help people not only speed up our work in org change, but to also help them adopt. So change is accelerating. I mean, sometimes I don't know about you, but I feel like, oh, please stop the merry-go-round and let me off. Just give me 5 minutes just to go, "Oh my gosh, okay, I'll be there. I'll be there in a second. Just give me a second." So exchange is accelerating. Complexity is increasing. It's like, wow, how do we do this? How do we get everybody on board faster? How do we train people faster? How do we provide support so people know what they're supposed to do? In that, AI can offer a lot of benefits to the OCM effort. So it can increase our productivity because it's a lot faster doing analysis than doing it ourselves, a lot faster creating communication than doing it ourselves. That doesn't mean we don't have to review it, however. It can provide a fresh perspective. Sometimes, when we're looking at things, we got blinders on because we're kind of looking at it the same way, at the same, it's like, okay, this must be an X. Well, AI can say, well, it could be, but there might be something else going on there. Why are people resisting? It could give you some fresh perspectives. It certainly can enhance your insight. Communication personalization, huge. You can create communication just focused on that department or that person. It can personalize communication to meet those people's needs because the best communication, resonates with the audience. And so it can personalize communication for each group without too much problem, which would be a lot better than for me to have to do that all. Helps leaders with data-driven decisions. Let's get all the data, figure out what makes the most sense. Then supports employees through tailored guidance. Maybe you can do FAQs or just on-time training. It's like, okay, now what am I supposed to do here again? Talked about communication messaging, making sure that the OCM efforts align with the business strategies in the organization. So that's just kind of a brief view of the benefits. We are going to certainly interject as we look at our OCM framework. How do we bring in AI into OCM and still maintain the humanness, the people side of change? So an org change management it's a framework that enables us to help the organization move from what's it doing today to that new future state with the least amount of disruption possible. Because when you think about change, not only are you introducing change into people's lives, but they sometimes have to do business as usual and then the new stuff. So you just put a whole bunch more stuff on their plate, which kind of impacts whether they're going to adopt or whether they're just going to say, I have change fatigue. I stop the merry-go-round, please. I want to get off. What OCM also does is optimize what we can achieve, speed up the ways of working, the adoption of the ways of working, particularly for the people that are impacted the most, your end users. A lot of times all changes, they impact a lot of different people, but in different ways. Some not so much. Some is like, oh, you just changed my whole world. You just changed the way I worked. So the framework that we're going to use, and there's tons of OCM frameworks, but they all come down basically to these points. They may call them something different, but they're basics. We're going to talk about defining a change, assessing organization readiness, plan. Then you have to implement. And then, most importantly, and sometimes we don't do this very well, I've had a lot of experience in org change over the last 30 some years, and I'm just going to say most people don't do this very well, sustain the change. So let's start with the first one, define the change. For people to accept the change, we need to know why. I think that's just common. I think it's in our DNA as humans, is we need to know the why, not just, oh, you're doing it this way. It's like, okay, why? So that I can understand and I have context. Why for the organization? Why for me? This is, what is the scope? What's in, what's out, what departments are included, what departments are not, what stakeholders are included, what stakeholders are not. How are we impacted? Especially the people who are doing the work, how are we going to be impacted? How is the organization being impacted? So we have to define the change, what's going on. So how do we use AI to do that? Wow, communicating the why of the change and the scope, what's in and out of scope. AI can do that really easily, and I would say anytime you draft communication, review it first. That's where the humanness comes in because AI only knows what's out there. It just goes out into the universe or goes through all the material you gave it and says, what should we communicate? And it's really helpful. I use that actually a lot of times when I'm creating courseware materials, when I'm doing a webinar. It's nice because sometimes it thinks of things that I don't think of. It's like, huh, yeah, I think we need to do that. But beware, it can just, garbage in, garbage out, that old adage we used to have in IT for a very long time. You still have to add a human piece to that, but it can broaden your perspective. It can see other viewpoints, the scope. So it can draft emails. It can create FAQs, frequently asked questions. It's like, what do you think, given this situation, you give them all the data and they go, what do you think the frequently asked questions? Because maybe you don't have any questions right now, but you're going to anticipate people are going to have questions about the change. That's what they normally do. AI can help you create that. And if it doesn't make sense, just don't publish it. Talking point scripts, being able to do that. Tailoring messages for certain audiences. Because rather than you taking all the time to say, well, gee, how do I say it for this group so it'll make sense using their terms? How do I say the message for this group in their words? And AI can do that very easily. It's like, okay, I want this message. I want this to go to HR and this message to go to finance and this message, it can help you tailor those messages. Certainly can convert content to different formats. Do you need a handout? Do you need a presentation? Do you need an email? Easy to do that. Also can help maintain that consistent messaging. So even if you do different audience segments, you're still talking about the same message, the same language. Here's what we're going to do. So it is huge in communication. Again, you can't just send it out without reviewing it, but it's a huge accelerator. And there's times where I want to get a message, or even sometimes when I do an email, I'll use ChatGPT. It's like, how do I say this more professionally? Because sometimes, you're busy or it's like, well, no, that just doesn't sound right. You want to make sure that it's good. So I just go, okay, here's what I want to say. Figure out how do I say this more professionally? And usually it's like, oh, I don't always accept it. I always review it because it could be, sometimes it goes down in the wrong rabbit hole, but it does help communicate. And communication is one of the keys in org change. We think communication happens and it really doesn't. We think we communicate enough and we often don't communicate it enough. So AI for stakeholder analysis. You can give it a list of stakeholders. You can give it the org chart. Sometimes it comes up with a list of stakeholders going, hey, have you thought about these people? Give them a process so they know who's involved. There's times where it's like, oh, I did forget that group. Oftentimes, we forget when we do a stakeholder analysis is, people who may not be the end users, but once removed, that people like sometimes we got to have finance or compliance involved, operations support, and then it can group the stakeholders. What is their concerns? Which ones have a high influence? Which ones have high interest? If you've done that stakeholder simple matrix, if they're high influence and high impacted, you want to keep those people really close. AI can help you kind of figure out which ones do I need to talk to, and one do I need to just keep informed. Some maybe I want to use high influencers to help influence them to the change, summarizing interview notes that I take with the stakeholders, surveys, as you're analyzing your stakeholders, it helps. I mean, it can do it really a lot faster than I can. Again, still reviewing it. And then figuring out, and this is assessing organizational readiness, is the organization and the people ready for change? Because if they're not ready for change, it's going to be a lot harder to deal with that. So it's like, how do we know, first of all, if they're ready? Second of all, if they're not ready, what do we need to do to get them ready? Because sometimes there's so much change in organizations. Your problem may be in one of them. It's like I said, it's like stop the Ferris wheel, stop the merry-go-round, whatever, the gerbil wheel. I gotta get off. So how can AI help in our change readiness? Well, it can map themes. It's really good at theme identification. So you feed it your surveys, maybe feedback that you've gotten, emails, chats. What are the themes here? What are we seeing the most often? That's huge, because if there's something you're seeing a lot of, then that's something that you probably need to address. Being able to identify resistance. Certainly early, is there any patterns that AI can recognize? Taking those surveys, those comments for themes. It's like, okay, of the survey, because sometimes we'll have surveys with closed-ended questions or ranking. The survey tool is usually pretty good at that, but if we give it survey to AI, and then we also have some open-ended questions, it can find themes between the answers to questions, themes on open-ended questions that people responded to. Certainly drafting impact analysis, who's impacted, how much are they going to be impacted, given, if we give them an idea of what the process is. Are they ready? Again, the influence interest matrix we had talked about before, but when you're assessing readiness for change, what you want to do is find those people who are kind of high influence and high interest, like, yeah, so if we get them on board, they can help us get other people on board. Just looking at how we impact. A lot of times when we do org change, we don't realize how much impact the end user will actually have to do, or impacts to even other parts of the organization. And AI can help with that. And because again, we kind of have blinders on sometimes and saying, how will they be impacted? And we keep saying the same thing, but we don't look at a broader assessment. Then plan for the change. Obviously, we have to plan for the change. This includes the org change approach. Is it going to be more waterfall? Is it going to be agile? We can do an agile approach to change, and we've had webinars on that. Maybe some of you have joined that. Certainly, what are the goals, objectives, benefits? What is the risk? We have a risk management plan. And so what are the risks? What are the risks of us implementing this change? AI can help with that. Timeline, budget, identifying a change network team, training and supporting plans, overcoming resistance, communication strategy. So planning for the change, they can even draft. If you tell them what you want in your OCM plan, AI can draft that. Certainly can generate, and we talked about this a little earlier, communication plans with various messages, draft stakeholder engagement strategies, suggest how can we help people overcome resistance, and it can give you ideas maybe that you never thought of. It's like, that's good. Maybe look at those measures of success. What is the budget? With risk, identifying given, all the information you can give to AI around that change, maybe give him the business case and the charter and some other things. What are some of the some of the risks that we might encounter. And if we do encounter, because risk, as you know, is a potential event, it hasn't happened yet. Maybe we need to have it to suggest risk mitigation strategies. Again, human needs to review it, but it's certainly a start, and it's a lot faster than us just trying to think about everything by yourself. Training and support, it's very helpful around that. It can create job aids, how-to guides, checklists, reference cards. It can act as a on-demand coach for new processes. It's like, okay, AI, help me out here. So training and support, it really does well. Creating personalized learning paths. What does this group need to learn? What does the other group need to learn? Building scenarios for training simulations. Okay, you have a customer calling in about such and such. What would you do? Micro learning. Explainer videos, like YouTube videos, just visuals. And some people are auditory, some people are visual, so they can take that in mind. So you have some things for just auditory learners, but also ones for visual learners. Feedback processes. Hey, this stinks. Why do you say that? You can have a whole part of AI asking questions, getting feedback, finding themes within that feedback. Having it available so that if you're not there, it can do simple coaching in regards to the process. Oh, you forgot to do this. Oh, you need to remember to do this. It can send little reminders. If you didn't fill out the template right. Oh, you forgot to do X. How about if you did, and so you can create all those that are helpful. So when somebody has a question, they can get a quick answer, especially if no one is around. And so then implement the change. This is where we actually implement whatever the change is, a new process, new software, a new building, new org structure, and being able to keep supporting the stakeholders during that transition. Because again, even though we brought in a new process, people are going to take some time to acclimate to that. So how do we support them? We should be able to support them through transition, or maybe they're doing a pilot and you're going, okay, or concurrent processing. So for the pilot, we're only going to support this group. For concurrent processing, we're going to use the old system and the new system for a month and see if everything is good. If so, then we'll throw out the old one. So how do we support people through that? And so this is where AI can look for adoption measurements. Okay, so, automated data or dashboards, being able to flag adoption patterns. How many people got into the system? How many people reverted back to the old system? How many people filled out the form correctly? They're going to look for anomalies and kind of monitoring people as they get through their new daily workflow. Spotting bottlenecks. Boy, it seems like there's a lot of people who have problems with this section. Or they can predict where, we might need extra support there. Certainly being able to summarize meetings, decisions, actions, risk as you are implementing something. Being able to, again, personalize the communication. And then I like the nudge reminders. I don't know about you, but sometimes I need a nudge reminder. And I used to, and I still do sometimes, put it on my my monitor saying, oh, Susan, you have to take attendance after class. And then they put an extra step in there, which I was kind of forgetting to do. So I put a little sticker on my monitor going, remember to do the second step in attendance. Well, how much better would it be for AI to say, hey, Susan, did you do attendance? And if you did you do that second step? Sometimes you just need until you get used to it, and then you can turn off the reminder. So you can help, we just nudge people, oh, did you remember to do this? Provide that self-service support, FAQs, so have that list of frequently asked questions, chatbots. I know when I was just actually, I just did that with PMI. I was putting in my PDUs, and I got audited on one of them, and they said, well, we need documentation. You can't talk to a person anymore. It's all you start with the chat bot, and then you may get to another person if you keep telling them person, person, person. But they don't email or anything. They just completely, so it's like, okay, well, I don't understand where I need to put my documentation. So even though it was self-serve, it would have been helpful to have a little bit more information on how to do a few things. They go, oh, well, we just need to, you just need to document and send us a document. I go, yeah, I know, but how do I send it to you? So when you do this, make sure that they actually work. And then, because this is going to be new for a lot of people, get feedback on what works, doesn't work, kind of figuring out again that agile transparency, frequent communication, and feedback. Generate training, job aids, track engagement. Are people really using the system, or are they going to go back to their Excel spreadsheets and use the old system? So kind of taking a look at that. So an AI assisted adoption program, this is an example, is looking at automating stakeholder analysis, analyzing, their impacts and what they're going to have to do in the new system. Create a personalized training journey for that person, which might look different than what another person does. Maybe the other person's just a reviewer and approver. Well, that's going to be different than the people that are filling out the template or whatever have you. You might have a predictive adoption dashboard. What do we think is going to be the adoption rate? And then bringing in certainly the human-led coaching and reinforcement. So it doesn't mean that during all this implementation and sustaining that we don't have real people there. We still need people. Somebody's going to get really frustrated and go, I just want to talk to someone. We still need human-led coaching and reinforcement, but we can have AI assist us in helping people adopt. So it's much faster and hopefully less resistance, because AI can also say, you watch out for this section. And then, of course, sustaining the change. We have to, sustain it after it's been in. One of the things that I had always heard, sorry about that, is that it takes 30 days to change a habit. And I'm thinking about all those New Year's resolutions, which is coming up. I don't know if you do New Year's resolutions, but it's like, oh, I just got 30 days and then I'll be fine. I'm usually good for 30 days. I'm not good after that 30 days. And then realizing that 30 days was just a myth. I don't know where that ever got coined. It really takes an average of 66 days at the minimum, and it could be up to over 250 days. That makes a little bit more sense. So how do we get people to not slide back? Because, I'm good for 30 days, but then I slide back into my old habits, slide back to my old routine. Well, that's what people do also when you change their work. They might do it really well the first month, maybe even the next 2 months. Maybe they go on vacation for a couple of weeks, come back and they go, you know what? I could do this so much faster in Excel. Or and pretty soon this nice streamlined process you have is all a bunch of garbage again. We have waste. People added to it. It's like, well, I think it'd be faster if we do this. I think it would be faster to do that. And then you've got also 14 people doing it 14 different ways. So you have to reinforce, not just the first month, oh, everybody looks good and going to move on, but really thinking about it and saying, okay, what do we need to do to reinforce it? How do we make sure that people are doing that new ways of working, 6 months, 9 months down the line? Being able to activate those line managers, the champions, still provide training because they go, oh gosh, when I went on vacation, I forgot how to do this now. What am I supposed to do? So have that training ready, those chat bots ready to answer questions, being flexible and get feedback. It's all about feedback, because that makes us a lot better, and continuing to ensure that value certainly is delivered. So in sustaining the change, looking at AI to monitor those metrics, summarize any feedback it gets, looking at leading or lagging indicators. Are we meeting those? Getting all the drafting talking points if we need them. Maybe even flag and stale SOPs and FAQs or flag old training. Benefits value tracking, compiling lessons learned. So incorporating AI as well into the sustaining mode. So how do we get started? If you start using AI into your OCM efforts, I would suggest taking just a small project. Could be high valued, but low risk. Just maybe a pilot, start with simple analysis tasks because it's going to take you, you probably go, Susan, you said AI would save me time. Well, it's going to take you some time to learn it too and figure out how to use it to its best benefit. So it's like, when do I want to use it? How am I going to use it? Setting quality and review standards. And then you have to also remember to train your team on the ethical use of AI, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then being able to measure, see, did you save time or did you just take more time? And just remember, again, when we learn anything, including AI, it's going to take us a little bit longer. But as we look at it and move forward, I should say, and instead, do we think we save time? Once you get some of those key prompts, it's going to make the next one easier and faster. Those key communication pieces, you understand what information AI needs in order to answer your questions. So I start small. Don't start with, oh, we're all going to use AI into the whole, on every change. I would just try a trial change before you go crazy, because otherwise you're not going to get the benefits you thought. There are things AI cannot do. And so it can't recognize and reward behaviors. That's a people side of thing. It certainly can't model anything. It can remind you how to do it, but modeling is from other people modeling the behaviors they want to see. It can't retire the old ways of working. It has no accountability. It certainly can't make course corrections like, oh, AI didn't work very well there. Let's not do that for a while until we figure out maybe we need different prompts or different data. Generally, I would not advise it. It can make suggestions on investments, where to invest our time, where to invest our money, but you probably don't want it to make the decision. So AI is great at suggestions, and I would encourage you to use AI to, suggest, okay, what training might we need, or how might we do this, or how many resources do you think? But when it comes down to it at the end, somebody's got to make a decision. And you certainly don't want AI making all your investment decisions for you. Aligning leadership, little hard to do that without being in person or in person, whether it's virtual or not, but person to person. Certainly being able to guard any compliance regulatory issues, adhere to ethical standards, that has to be on the people side. Defining what is our OCM framework? There's lots of frameworks out there. Somebody has to pick in your organization. What does success look like? And also just doing redesign in organizational structures is probably not its best thing either. But it can do a lot of the mundane tasks. It's like, I don't care to do, or what are the key topics that I should be communicating? They might have that and then kind of figure out what I want to communicate, when I want to communicate it. They can make suggestions. You have to make the decision and accountability. So human-centered change still matters. We still need people ourselves to interpret and understand context, to build those strong relationships, to build trust, to manage emotions. We are emotional creatures. It comes with us hand in hand. We still have to manage resistance, because the last thing you want to do is talk to AI to, it certainly can help them, someone deal with resistance, but it's always nice to have that emotional people connection, to figure out how to avoid, or not avoid resistance, because we are going to get resistance, but how to mitigate it. Shaping the culture and alignment, building relationships, reviewing and improving anything. So we still have to manage AI. We should not have it manage us, but we can give it suggestions, or it gives us suggestions as we go through. It can give us various ideas. It can get us to see themes in the data that we otherwise would not have seen because there was too much data. So those are some of the things that I think we need to work on. What to watch out for, because AI is not perfect. Inaccurate or biased output. Like I said, garbage in, garbage out. Is the stuff you're looking at even accurate? You gave it the data to analyze, but was that accurate? Is it outdated or fabricated? Maybe we have over-reliance. If we get over-reliance, then we reduce our own critical thinking. AI is supposed to be a support tool, not take over tool. Privacy concerns, inappropriate data, lots of human connection. And I know you've probably been reading this too, is that there seems to be, and I think it started in COVID, but there's a concern that people are losing that human connection. And if that's one of the key things that we can provide as a benefit from OCM, is that communication or human connection, that human piece, so you don't want AI to take over OCM, because it's still a human, it's still an emotional journey. And for that, you still need humans. So also, just before we go, is you have to think about the ethical and responsible use of AI. So I would suggest, before using AI in your OCM efforts, is to create an AI policy, governance structure. How are we going to use it? When are we going to use it? Making sure you have transparent messaging, such as this was AI assisted, but human reviewed. Because you don't want junk out there. It'll send whatever. You think about all those scam emails or messages you get. It was AI assisted. So we want to make sure that we're transparent, saying AI assisted and human reviewed. There was still a human behind that message. Certainly protecting sensitive information, data privacy, data consent. You don't want to use AI to manipulate people, manipulate behavior, only telling them half truths to get them to do something. That's really unethical. Ensure inclusivity in generated content, making sure everyone is included. And then conduct bias checks. Is it valid? Did it give me good information? Did the data come from a good source? And then also making sure that you have, as you create your policy, is when do the humans need to be in the mix? This is called human in the loop. It sounds kind of weird, but what are the sign-offs? Who's making decisions? Who's actually accountable? Yeah, who's accountable for AI? What if AI makes a mistake, which it certainly has done? Do we get blamed? Sometimes you still need, at the end of the day, a human decision, somebody to look at it and say, hey, does this make sense? So that's something to continue to look at. So creating that policy. And just some fun little prompt tips, as you work with AI, is certainly provide it with context, the goals, the audiences, constraints, certainly sample artifacts. Here's a template I need to fill out. What do you think? Here's what I want to look for. Ask for multiple variants and a rationale. Say, why did you pick that? Why is this important? Tables, checklists. You can ask them for tone. They can do it in a formal tone, professional tone, informal tone. Pick the tone that you want, the channels. Making sure it complies with any requirements that you have. And then you can always ask it questions like, what am I missing? Where could this fail? What trends are you seeing? What would your analysis be? Because it's really good at taking all that data and figuring it out and analyzing it really fast. So, summary, AI handles the volume, the speed, and data, anything that's repetitious. Humans still handle the meaning, the relationships, the trust, the influence of each other. But together, you certainly can gain faster insights and stronger engagement because it can do a lot of things faster that you can't do or don't have time to do. So with that said, on that journey, we'll have a little bit of Q&A. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, thank you. Sorry, Danita. OCM stands for Organization Change Management, and I do abbreviate that because that's a mouthful. But yeah, it's Organization Change Management. Thank you, Scott, for the nice words. Does somebody have their hand up? I can't see the hands, so yeah, Mariella put some things in the chat. I thought I saw someone raise their hand, but I'm not sure who did that. So you can put it in the chat. Or any other questions before I let you go for today? Thank you very much for listening. And I'm kind of excited to know how you're going to use AI and OCM. So I'm just going to put my email in here so that if you get a chance, I would love to hear how you're using AI into OCM. So if you just think about me when you're doing something and you want to share it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I just wanted to throw in a quick reminder while we have our any last minute questions come into the chat. If you missed out on any part of this session, we will absolutely be sharing a recording with you in an email after the webinar. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you so much for dropping your email in. Dr. Heidorn, we had one question come in. How important is it to have top executives in the organization to support AI and change?
Oh, definitely. Any change at all, it really, you have to have executive support because otherwise, you'll have resistance and then they'll just go, oh, yeah, whatever. We're really not into this anyway. So it really is critical to have leadership acceptance and support. So they go, no, we are doing this change and AI is a change as well. This is what we're going to do so that people can't say, well, I'm just going to wait them out because they don't care anyway. You want to get over that hump pretty easy. Well, as easy as possible anyway.
As easy as it is to get everybody on the same page, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, we got a lot of thank yous, Dr. Heidorn, a lot of very insightful sessions. So I think people are going to walk away from this session with lots to think about, and hopefully we'll see you all very soon in the classroom.
Right.
But other than that, thank you so much, Dr. Heidorn.
You
Amazing
are
work.
most welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much to our amazing audience today for throwing in all of these
Yes.
comments, this
Thanks for
feedback, and the
listening.
question. Yeah, absolutely. Really great to see. So we'll see you all very soon. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and bye for now.